The images released by the Russian Defense Ministry begin with a wide shot that captures a solemn yet stirring scene. A group of men draped in Russian flags step down from military trucks and gather in formation. Their voices chanting "Russia, Russia" echo across the grey October morning. It is both a cry of relief and a declaration of endurance. These men are prisoners of war who have just crossed the fragile front lines of a conflict that has claimed countless lives. The camera cuts closer, focusing on the faces of the repatriated men. Some look weary, with hollow eyes that hint at months, if not years, of hardship. Others appear defiant, standing tall as they clutch the tricolour flag that now rests across their shoulders. One by one, they climb the steps of a waiting bus. The process is deliberate, quiet, except for the occasional thump of boots on metal and the low murmur of voices. The sense of history being recorded is unmistakable. Though the footage is vivid, a crucial caveat hangs over it. International agencies like AFP have not been able to independently verify when or where it was shot, or even whether all those shown were indeed prisoners returning from captivity. Such disclaimers have become standard in a war where images often travel faster than facts. Yet the symbolic weight of the scene cannot be denied. This moment marks the continuation of one of the war's few remaining channels of dialogue, prisoner exchanges. In a conflict defined by artillery barrages, drone strikes, and mounting civilian casualties, these exchanges remain among the rare instances where human lives move in the opposite direction of destruction, from danger back toward home. As the bus doors close, the lens captures the flicker of relief on a few faces. For some, this is the first journey home after enduring months of captivity in Ukraine. The road ahead will not be easy. Many returnees will carry not only physical injuries, but also the scars of isolation, uncertainty, and the mental weight of having survived captivity. The footage continues with more scenes of men boarding buses. The repetition underscores both the scale and the human monotony of war. Each man steps forward, passes the threshold, disappears into the bus. The visual rhythm conveys a quiet message. War's prisoners are returned not in dramatic parades, but in lines, in silence, in the slow shuffling movement of men. Beyond the images lies a larger political story. Each prisoner exchange is typically preceded by painstaking negotiations conducted through intermediaries, often Turkey, Belarus, or the International Committee of the Red Cross. These talks unfold behind closed doors, far from the front lines. While the details of each swap often remain confidential, officials in Moscow and Kiev usually announce the numbers involved. These statements are often brief, sometimes celebratory, but rarely disclose the conditions of captivity or the price paid for the release. In past exchanges, the numbers have varied from dozens to hundreds at a time. Each swap becomes a fragile bridge across a deepening divide, a temporary demonstration that even amidst hostility, the warring sides can still reach agreement on at least one humanitarian issue. But these moments do not necessarily signal a thaw in relations. Rather, they reveal the complexity of a war where negotiations for peace seem distant, yet bargaining for prisoners continues. For Russia, the return of soldiers, often presented as heroes, serves a domestic political purpose. State media highlight their stories, emphasizing resilience and loyalty. For Ukraine, the recovery of captured defenders is equally significant, reinforcing morale on the home front. Both sides know that these images resonate deeply with families whose loved ones remain in captivity. The setting of this exchange, reportedly in Belarus's Gomel province, adds another layer of intrigue. Belarus has long been a close ally of Moscow and often plays a logistical role in such swaps. Its involvement highlights how neighbouring countries have been drawn, willingly or otherwise, into the machinery of this war. The chanting of Russia at the beginning of the video is not merely a spontaneous expression. It reflects the enduring power of symbols in wartime. National flags, chants, and the act of boarding a homebound bus all serve to reassert identity, to remind both the soldiers and those watching that they are part of something larger than themselves, even after the disorienting experience of captivity. For journalists covering this conflict, footage like this presents a delicate challenge. On the one hand, it offers a rare glimpse of humanity amid the violence, a visual reminder that behind statistics of casualties and frontline reports are real people enduring real suffering. On the other hand, such footage can also serve as a tool of propaganda, carefully edited and released to shape public perception at home and abroad. That is why international agencies always stress the limits of what can be confirmed. The fact that this particular footage was released by Russia's defense ministry means it inevitably carries a perspective, one that portrays the returning soldiers as determined and unified, their hardships framed as sacrifices for the motherland. Yet the broader context of the war cannot be ignored. The ongoing conflict has not only shattered towns and cities across Ukraine, but has also claimed an immense human toll on both sides. Soldiers captured, civilians displaced, and families left waiting for news that sometimes never comes. Each prisoner returning home represents a story of survival, but also a reminder of many others still held in detention. Consider, too, the human dimension on the Ukrainian side. For every Russian soldier shown boarding a bus in this footage, there is likely a Ukrainian counterpart who has been freed in exchange. While their stories may not always be broadcast with the same fanfare in Moscow, they matter equally to the families waiting across the front line. The war's prisoner exchanges have a way of cutting through the rhetoric of politics and the thunder of weaponry. They reveal that even amidst bitter enmity, some common recognition of humanity persists, if only temporarily. They also highlight the precariousness of such gestures. A single attack or a breakdown in talks can derail the process for months, leaving hundreds in limbo. The return of prisoners often sparks waves of emotion, joy for some, resentment for others who feel the swaps release dangerous adversaries back into the fight. Governments on both sides must therefore balance the humanitarian imperative with military and political considerations. In this way, each exchange is not only a logistical feat, but also a delicate act of political theatre. The footage of October 2nd is also notable for what it does not show. We do not see the conditions the prisoners endured during captivity, the medical checks that usually precede repatriation, or the tearful reunions with families. Such scenes often unfold away from cameras, protected by privacy or obscured by state control of the narrative. Still, the images we do see, the slow boarding of buses, the men clutching flags, the momentary chants, carry a certain weight precisely because of their restraint. They remind us that war is not fought only on the battlefield, but also in the lives of those who have been captured, exchanged, and returned, sometimes more than once. As the bus carrying the men pulls away, the camera lingers on the waving flags visible through its windows. They flutter slightly as the vehicle moves, a silent emblem of the journey back across the lines of conflict. The bus fades from view, leaving the viewer to wonder about the next chapter for those inside. In the end, this episode offers no resolution to the broader war. The front lines remain active, with artillery duels and drone strikes continuing to claim lives. Peace negotiations remain distant and uncertain, but the return of prisoners stands out as a rare, if fragile, thread of humanity woven into an otherwise grim tapestry. Such stories are a reminder of the war's human core, a conflict not only of territory and power, but of people taken, held, and sometimes given back. For the families who wait, these exchanges are the only flickers of hope amid the grinding violence. For the wider world, they offer a brief glimpse of the possibility, however slim, that dialogue can still achieve something amid the deadlock of war. The footage released by the Russian Defense Ministry thus serves as more than a mere news clip. It is a record of a moment in a war that has stretched far longer than many expected. It is also a symbol of the paradoxes of conflict, that amid unrelenting hostility, even bitter adversaries sometimes find themselves compelled to make room for acts of mercy. And as journalists recount this moment, they must balance the demands of storytelling with the rigors of verification. They must report the images while acknowledging what remains unconfirmed, provide context while resisting manipulation, and remind audiences that behind every flag-draped figure stepping onto a bus is a human story shaped by forces far larger than any single individual. This is the story of one such moment, part of an ongoing war, part of an ongoing human struggle, seen through the lens of a state camera but told here as it unfolds, not as propaganda, but as a reminder that in war, even the return home can be both triumphant and tragic.